On the road again. What's up, guys? We're back with another video, and I'm here. I'm right here. Yeah, I don't want to speed through anything. I don't want to, bypass you in any way. I just want to let you know, like, we're here. And even though you're not with me right now, and you'll see this in a few weeks, I still think you'll be able to get it. Because I just believe that God is capable of doing anything. So it's pretty easy to get by with that. And so that's basically going to be the foundation of our talk today. I mean, how you're going to be able to do things that, and I'm sorry for chewing in the mic. These are honey roasted peanuts. I put Nutter Butters in here so I could eat them out of the can. I don't know. I thought it would be fun and creative. That you can basically accomplish anything with Jesus as your foundation. I mean, He's the one who created everything. And I'm willing to talk about, Jesus and how He can be God and man and all that stuff. I'm not going to shy away from that, because I can feel kind of a presence of, somebody saying, well, I believe in God. I don't know about Jesus or who I'm supposed to follow. Look, man, it's pretty simple. But I get it. I really do get it. How do I know this? How do I know that? Well, here's the first thing you should consider is that I've never heard a better story. I've been around for 27 years. I've been educated for long enough. I went to college, got a degree. I've been educated long enough to know that there's only a few religions. There's only a few worldviews. There's only a finite amount of ways that this thing could be working. And I've investigated Jesus. I investigate Jesus every time I open this Bible and I listen to Him, and I don't discredit Him right off the bat. And I do not do that with other people. And I don't mean that I don't listen to them, but I'm pretty quick to discredit Muhammad, a man who lives 600 years after this guy Jesus, and claimed that everything that he was just a prophet and that he couldn't be one with God, and I can understand why that would be like difficult for somebody, because you're asking them to put their entire lives and their faith into the hands of a man who claims that he was God. And he acknowledges that he was born of a virgin and a lot of other things, but he's basically calling Jesus a liar. And I've read the accounts in this Bible about from the disciples' point of view, and it only makes me believe Jesus even more, because why would 12 people follow a man to death? And here's the thing that separates God, and here's the thing that separates Jesus from and his 12 disciples from a cult. You see, a cult happens pretty quick, and things happen radically and fast. And people are drinking Kool-Aid and sacrificing themselves, and you're like, well, what's the difference? The difference is that the people that I'm talking about, the disciples, were doing these things for up to 40 years after Jesus left. And so it stands to reason to me that if 12 people are willing to, first of all, follow him, learn from him, they obviously saw something special in him. Watch him closely. They're not dumb, you know. I don't know if you've seen people with mental illnesses or like those crazy cult people, but they don't really get away with a whole lot, and they don't really last very long. They always collapse. That's just kind of how it works. When you do bad things, somebody out of the 8 billion people is going to walk in on you doing something that you didn't want them to see. And their whole little parallel world they've been living in, or their little universe they've created as a safe haven for themselves and their own security and mental peace, will collapse. And you know, Jesus, and I kind of got choked up there for a second. Jesus is still here today. His words and his life is still affecting people today. And I actually do know that if it was fake, it wouldn't be working like that. And I have something to say about, you know, some of the other things that have worked like that, kind of in the same light, like Muhammad and Islam. Well, that's affected a lot of people, Braxton, and, you know, all that stuff. Well, look, listen to this. The only thing that Muhammad did was discredit Jesus. And the only thing that he did was basically use Jesus as a crutch. And what was written in the Torah, you know, the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. In Numbers. Yeah, that's 5. That's what penta means. 5. Penta. I think sextus is 6 in Latin. It's a root word. Octo, 8. Penta, 5. 5 books. The first 5 books of the Bible. And it's not hard for you to make a new narrative off of basically saying like, hey, this is basically our version of what Jesus said, and let's roll this way. And I understand that there's people coming to me and thoughts are flooding in my mind that are saying to me, hey Braxton, what about Jesus writing off of the Pentateuch as well? Because isn't that what Judaism was, Orthodox Judaism? Didn't Jesus just take what they did and spin that? Well, yeah. I mean, he has basically come to the people who are Orthodox Jews and told them that he was the one that was prophesied about. And that's where we look deeper into Jesus, and we look deeper into this whole picture, and we look deeper into whatever you want to call this little situation that is happening right now. That we're talking about Jesus doing the same thing that I'm claiming that Muhammad did, was basically take a religion that existed first and basically push back against it and ride that wave. And I know that there was a lot of conquering of land, and it was done in the name of, you know, in the vision and the spirit of Muhammad and whatever he was telling these people. And obviously that stuck with them because it's still pretty prominent today. But I would argue that, I mean, as far as widespread, that Christianity has taken over, and that Islam stays in kind of a sect of the world. And yeah, there's people who there's a mosque here in Oxford, Mississippi, but I mean, there's more Christians, Christ followers, or at least they claim to be, than there are Muslims. And the difference between Jesus and Muhammad is, first of all, Muhammad didn't resurrect from the dead. Muhammad didn't heal sick people and blind people and give them sight and feed the poor and teach everybody about God. And you're like, that's arguable because you're just going off. Yes, I understand that the last thing I said, might be a little bit hard for you to hear if you don't believe what I believe. And I'm acknowledging that. But let me finish. So the difference is that Jesus was prophesied about, a Messiah, a Savior for the Israelite nation. And this was all written about previously, thousands of years before, 800 years before. Isaiah and Jeremiah, they have messianic prophecies inside of the books that were written. And they were prophets. They were people who worshipped the God of Israel. They worshipped Yahweh. And so this was written about and recorded previously. Jesus comes and fulfills all of these things. And not only did he do that, he also did it in a manner that impacted the entire world up until 2,000 years. 2025 is right now. 2,000 years later, we're still doing it. He's still making an impact on me. He's still saying that I am valuable in God's eyes, and that if I do what God says, that I will be his child and he will take care of me. And so, you know what? I've never heard a better story. I've never heard a better story than that. And if you can tell me a better story, then I'll believe you and follow you with whatever you tell me. But until you beat Jesus and what he said and how he said to perceive the world, and how he said what he said the kingdom of heaven is like, and how he says to live my life, then I won't do it. Because you've never resurrected from being dead before. And that takes all my faith. I put all my chickens in his basket. But you know what? I don't have any better plans, because to tell you quite bluntly, and to tell you directly, I'm not really sure how I got here, and I know you guys aren't either. And just me looking around, and I'm a huge advocate for science. I love science. I love the scientific method, observing, making hypothesis, observing the outcome. You can make alternate hypothesis. You can make an alternate hypothesis. And there's molecules, and there's atoms. There's cells. And there's very intricate things happening here on this planet, and there's no way that I'm going to look around here and believe that there is no God at all, for those people who are saying that this is random, and there is no order here, and that it's just completely random. And I'm not saying that that's not a valid point, but I am saying that if there's two paths to choose, and there really is an underlying reason why you don't believe in God, more than you just really feeling that way down to your absolute core all the time, 24/7, then I would say that you have to also acknowledge that there could be a God, and that you also, we're kind of on the same playing field as that. But the only thing that separates us, and the thing that makes my story better than your story, is that my story has hope, and your story has none. And like I said, if you are just a totally against God, and you don't have any reason other than the fact that you have just reasoned yourself into a place that you just don't believe, I would try and remind you that there's things that you wouldn't believe, if I told you about them, unless you experience them yourself, like love. You wouldn't believe that. But my entire point is that the only thing that separates my version of what I believe, and your version of what you believe, and your complete randomness, and my complete story where God created everything with an order, is that my story ends in victory, and your story ends in death. My story happens with peace and love and joy and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness throughout. Yours is random, blah, blah, blah. And so, what's my point? My point isn't that if you just don't believe, or if you just, whatever your situation is, to just like go against everything, that, just because. I'm not saying it's not the wise thing to do, because if I'm right, and I've got a pretty good hunch that I'm right, because I've been following this trail like a hound dog, and it works. But I'm not asking you to completely change everything you believe just because I said so. But I would consider that your story is hopeless and mine is not. And you might think me unintelligent. You might think me foolish for believing that there is a God and that there is somebody in control. But we're just going to go back to the same, place we started. We both don't know how we got here, and we both don't have an explanation for any of this stuff. And so I put my faith in this stuff, and it works. I put my faith in Jesus, a man who walked on the earth and taught us about who we are and what we're doing here, and then had signs to back it, did miraculous things. And I believe him, and I love him, and I'll serve him until the day I die. I will serve him with my entire heart. And you can do whatever you want. But that's why I'm not going with Muhammad, and I'm not going with Buddha, and I'm not going with, the Jews who don't believe in Jesus. I'm not going with the Hindus. I'm going with Jesus Christ, because I've never heard a better story.